Okay, yesterday we were talking about agreeing with God, and that's all well and good, but what do you agree on? And one of the basic tenets of our faith is that faith begins where the will of God is known. In other words, you can't just have faith without knowing what God wants to do in a certain situation. I have several stories here of my own life that happened. My first husband left me for someone else and was having an affair, and that really boggled my mind because I didn't know what to do scripturally, because there are several scriptures that say, God hates divorce. In the next section, in another place, it says, you can divorce them in a case of adultery, or if you put away your wife, this and that. So there were conflicting things, and it was really hard for me to get God's will and God's mind, and I had to wait for it. You remember that saying that's been popular? You got to wait for it. You've got to wait for it, and it took a couple of months to get a clear direction. And I remember actually going up to the front of the church, and it was a church I just started going to in Bonners Ferry. Those of you who get this, remember Praise Church. And shaking my Bible at George Miller, who was the worship leader, and going, it says that God hates divorce, and it says, but don't divorce, and then it says you can. And I just, what's the truth, And I think that's where a lot of us get. So you have to wait for God. And so I'm trying to think how many months later. So that was July or August. So in December, because I don't remember what day, but the Christmas tree was up. And the word of the Lord came to me, and when the Lord is speaking to you. And he said, judge ye righteous judgment. And all of a sudden I knew, because I'd been brought up Catholic, divorce was a major sin. And I knew that he is the one who committed adultery. I mean, God had already dealt with me. God told me not to marry the guy. So, and I did. So it was inevitable this was going to happen. But God, he just said, I want this down right. Judge you righteous judgment. He left you. He has committed adultery. Make sure it's down on paper right. So I finally had the will of God in that matter, but it took a while. In John 10, verse 4, it says, I'm going to paraphrase this. It says, the shepherd never sends his sheep out alone or on their own. He always leads us. In verse 4, it says, when he puts forth his own sheep, he goes before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. So this is a good time of the year to find out the will of God for you. And I'm not just talking about big things, little things too, or whatever is on your heart, or whatever he wants to tell you. That's a really good one. And it's very, very, very important, because this is where faith begins. You have got to come into agreement with his will for you. You can't just, you can, but it's not going to work, go after something that you want. So let's just pray this, and not really pray it, but proclaim it, and just say, Jesus, I am easily led by you. You are my good shepherd, and I want you to lead me, and I'm easily led by you, and I rest in your leading.